Today we're beefing up the suspension on our 2019 Ford Transit T350 with the Timbren rear axle suspension enhancement kit. Before we dive in, let's see if the suspension enhancement system is going to be a great option for your Ford Transit. Suspension upgrade? Why? Adding weight, more weight, and even more weight causes rear sagging. Your headlights will point up. You will get worse handling and steering, less control, and less comfort. With suspension enhancement added, your ride stabilizes, it levels out your vehicle, better control and steering, headlights straighten out, reduces road shock, and have a safer ride in comfort. Check out the footage that we took underneath of your Transit. We put about 250 pounds on a cargo carrier. And as you can see, the factory bounce stops don't even hit the axle, so it does feel pretty violent in the cab. Once we have the new bounce stops installed, you notice there's a lot smaller gap between our axle and the bottom of the bounce stop. It definitely helped a lot on the test course, so the whole entire back suspension engaged much quicker. And also the biggest improvement I saw was when we took these big wide turns and really sharp turns at a higher speed. I didn't feel the body of the vehicle roll near as much. The bracket on top is going to be made of steel and it has a powder coated finish, so it's not going to really rust away over time. And the bounce stop is going to be made of rubber, but it is a hollow rubber, so it's not just going to completely stop your axle. It's also going to flex even with those heavier loads you may have. If we do have a really heavy load on here and it does hit the axle, it's going to be a lot more heavy duty than the factory bounce stop that we removed earlier. This is not going to increase our Transit's capacity when we're hauling. It's just going to handle those heavier loads a little bit better. So the leveling capacity of this is going to be 8,600 pounds. It goes in the same exact spot as our factory bounce stop. All you need is a socket, maybe an extension or two, a ratchet to tighten it down. It's a very quick and easy process, so let's show you how. First, you want to chalk your front wheels. Then we want to jack up the back of our vehicle. The goal here is to get the suspension on the rear axle to sag so we have a little bit more room to work with. And then find a solid part on your frame to put your jack stand. Let's remove the factory hardware. All we got to do is just pull this out like this and undo this bolt. Take a 13mm socket to loosen and remove this bolt. Here's our factory hardware. So there's two different options we have with our new system. One, we can just have the metal plate here and the main bounce stop with the smaller bolt. It's a little bit bigger than the factory setup, or we can go ahead and use this extra spacer that's included with the longer bolt to make it a little bit taller. The goal here is we want at least a 1/2 inch to an 1.5 inch gap between the bottom of this and our axle. Some useful measurements to see which one's going to be best. This one has a height of 7.25 inches, and this one, without the spacer, has a height of 6.25 inches. What we're doing is not using the spacer, so we're using the smaller bolt, and then you want the rounded part like this to be facing up towards your frame. You definitely want to use a short socket, and it's going to be a 17mm. That's just going to make sure it's not going to fall down into the socket too much, because we do need to catch some of these threads. Lift it up into place, line it on up, and thread it in. And then we can go ahead and tighten this down all the way once it's in place. Quick little tip: 1, use a shallow socket. 2, if the bolt kind of falls in, even if it's just a 1/2 inch, you're gonna wanna put something in there just to keep that bolt pushed up in the outside of the socket right here, so the threads are gonna be able to touch the threads on the frame. Now repeat on the other side. We can take our jack stands out and we can lower our Transit down. And remove the chocks. And that'll do it for a look at the Timbren rear axle suspension enhancement kit for your 2019 Ford Transit T350.